Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Sheldon-Fell with the International Grief Institute, and this is Moments of Hope. And we are running a little bit late tonight. We had a little bit of technical problems, and we finally got our guest, Chuck Andreas, tied in here. And I apologize. My cat is now wanting to join us and say hello. So thank you for hanging in there with us. We're finally live tonight. Before we get going with Chuck, I just want to say that our first Managing Grief in the Workplace class is tomorrow night. And this is a brand new class designed to help employers create a culture of support for employees. And it's super, super cool. You can learn more at university.internationalgriefinstitute.com. And if you want to join the movement, sign up, be part of the solution. And also, I just want to share that if you get the winter blues, join us on the Journeys to Hope cruise. It leaves Cape Canaveral next March 3rd, 7 nights at sea aboard the Royal Caribbean Oasis of the Sea, and you will join over 20 guest experts who are grief experts who will help you find your footing after loss. And you can find information on that at www.lindafell.com. All right, so tonight we have guest Chuck Andreas. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing very well now that we finally got everything connected in. And thanks for hanging in there with us. You know, suicide is a topic that has been and I've got a cat jumping up here. I'm going to move the cat. Suicide is a topic that is in the news a lot lately. And it's a devastating occurrence for everyone, and it leaves more questions than answers. And you are a person who attempted suicide. And before we talk about what happened, I want to set the backstory for our viewers. A few years back, your mom had cancer. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the night, you got the phone call that she had passed, and you were asked to go to her apartment.
Yes.
What happened when you walked in?
It was something I wish I hadn't. I wish I actually had thought about knowing that I was going to see, because the last thing you want to do is see your mom passed away as she passed away. And I could never get rid of that thought out of my head, the view. And I had a tough time for a while because the last thing a person wants to see is their mom passed away.
So you walked into her apartment,
yes.
And there she was dead on the bed.
Yes.
And you turned to your wife, Gloria, and you said, I never want to see that again.
And never again.
And in 2014, Gloria went to bed.
Yes.
And
she never woke up.
The next morning, something was wrong.
Yes. I woke up my normal time, and usually Gloria was sitting up in a chair next to me watching TV, having a cup of coffee, and she usually got up around 9:30, and I woke up at 20 after 11, and it was like I didn't hear any sounds. The TV wasn't on, and so I called her name. I didn't hear anything. Called her name again, and I looked, and the bedroom door was open. And I used to sleep on the couch because of working second shift. I would come home, and that way, so I wouldn't get the elbow in the middle of the night to quit snoring or have the TV on. It was easier to sleep on the couch. And so that way I went into the bedroom, and when I saw the bedroom door open, I knew something was wrong. And I walked through the door, and she had passed away.
So it didn't happen once. It happened twice.
No, it happened twice. And
so what went through your mind in that moment?
That moment was, I can't believe that it's happening, because Gloria had really gotten excited about going back to work. And it was about 2 weeks before that, she was dancing in the living room and just felt good. And things were going to get back to normal for us, because it had been tough since the flood of 2011. And she took some time off from work because her shop got destroyed. Okay. And she had never had time off. She had to work her whole life. So it was like, all right, you take some time off, Gloria. And then it was like, okay, now it's, you can get back to work, and she was ready to get back to work. And so, I mean, things were just going to be back to normal and things were going to be good again. And to walk in and find your soulmate passed away without even, I mean, there was no thought of her passing away at all. I mean, it was such a sudden thing that it was like getting hit over the head with a 2x4.
Yeah. So it was sudden, unexpected,
Yes.
and traumatic.
Traumatic is the exact word.
And so, how long after you lost Gloria did you start to contemplate suicide?
There was no contemplating suicide. There was no thought of suicide until one night, and I hadn't been drinking because I know obviously alcohol is a depressant.
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? I feel like drinking. And I was sitting there one night, and one of the problems that I had was going into the bedroom. Going into the bedroom just really bothered me. I couldn't sleep in the bed. I've attempted to sleep in the bed. It's almost 4 years now. I've slept in the bed once. Mm. The clothes, I have my clothes still in the bedroom. I still put them in the dresser, but I just can't go in there at nighttime and sleep. And so I went in. Well, one night I sat there and said, I feel like drinking. So I got a bottle out, and I enjoyed Wild Turkey. American honey is what they called it. And I used to enjoy having a beer with it. Well, I started with a shot glass, and then the shot glass went to a glass with it on ice. And then I don't want ice, it'll water it down. So then it went from putting it in the glass to, why am I wasting my time putting it in the glass? And I just drank straight out of the bottle. I got trashed. I went in, sat on the bed because I was drunk. The animals came in, we're sitting there. And I said, you know what? There's a way to get rid of this pain. And I went over, grabbed the gun, and I was always brought up, you don't leave a gun and the bullets in the same spot in case somebody breaks in the house. So I went over, grabbed the bullets, put a bullet in the gun, and sat there and said, you know what? This'll ease the pain. I won't have to leave a note for my kids because the kids will find me dead on the bed. And so there won't have to be an explanation. I wasn't concerned about my kids because I figured they all have kids. They have their lives now, so they don't have to worry about me. And I started to put the gun up, and I thought, and this is one thing I tell everybody, for being drunk that one time, it was probably the smartest thing that ever happened to a drunk person was I thought one more second. And I said, but I'm going to kill myself on the bed. Who's going to find me? And the one person who had a key for the house was my stepdaughter, Alicia. And it's like, at that time, we were checking in on, she was actually checking on me all the time. And it was like, I'm not going to answer my phone. She'll come to the house. She'll come in, and she'll bring her girlfriend with her, which is Heather, who is a nurse. And I know that Alicia wouldn't come in the room. She'd make Heather come in the room, and they would find me. And I thought, you know what? I wouldn't be curing a situation. I would just be passing pain on. So I thought, you know what? It's not good to pass it on. I'm just going to have to deal with it. And actually, I was so drunk that the next morning I woke up on the couch, and it was one of those, did I actually do that? And I went in to the bedroom, and the gun was on the bed loaded. So it was like, that was stupid.
This close.
Yeah, it was that close. So I called Alicia and said, Alicia, you're not going to believe what I did. She goes, Chuck, please get the gun out of the house. So I got the gun out of the house. I called a friend and said, can you do me a favor? I said, I need to drop my gun off. No questions were asked. That's a friend. Chuck, whatever you need to do. So I took the gun out of the house. And one of the things that I haven't told people, and this really bothers me, is that I don't drink now. And I have a lot of friends that say, Chuck, come on, have a drink, have a drink. It's not that I wouldn't bother me getting drunk, but my concern is coming home and sitting drunk alone and doing the same thing all over again. So it's just easier not to do that. And I'm surprised at the amount of people that don't understand that. But it's not something that I tell everybody. But I know it's easier and smarter for me not to do it. So that's why I don't.
Well, bless your heart. And you know, suicide happens when pain exceeds coping skills. And so, have you found yourself at that same point since then? And if so, what have you done?
No, actually, and I hate to go back, but I had attempted suicide years before.
Okay.
And a friend actually pulled the gun out of my hand when I was putting it towards my mouth because I was going to blow my head off. I had come to the point in life where I wanted to die. And after Gloria passed away, because you don't talk about suicide outside of your family circle.
Right.
You know, that's a stigma that we have to stop.
Yep.
And we don't. And so I never talked about it outside of the family circle until after Gloria passed away. So then I spoke at Rock Against Suicide one year. And after I spoke, Alicia came up and said, Chuck, I'm going to have to worry about you now. And I said, no, you don't have to worry about me because people only attempt suicide once. Unbeknownst to me, I was lying because I thought that would have been the only time until that night. And now I have to admit, and I hate to say it, but I know I'm suicidal because the thought's been there twice. I'm not stupid.
Right.
But I've never thought about that again.
Well,
really.
You know, you're not stupid at all. You're actually very brave. And to share with us what you went through your mind that night and where you are today, I applaud you. I applaud your courage, and I'm grateful because I think that when we talk about it, it helps us to understand, and understanding is the first step toward improving support and saving those that are in your situation. And so you now are an advocate. You actually have been asked to speak. You work at a university in New York, and they've asked you to speak. Where have they asked you to speak?
I actually spoke twice last year to what they call dorm areas and to students in their living sections. So I spoke twice last year, and I was asked if I could speak again this year, which I'm hoping to do. And one of my biggest hopes is to talk at high schools because I'm not a professor or I don't have a degree. High schools are concerned about having me talk because they're afraid that the students don't want to hear what they need to hear. And
well, it's actually, I think that the professionals, the staff, they're afraid that when we talk about suicide, it plants the idea in someone's mind. And that's been a concern for decades. But the truth is that when you talk about it, other people say, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one feeling this way.
Yes.
And you give them hope that there's life beyond pain.
It's one of the things that I enjoy is after I speak, the people that actually do come up to me and say, well, can I talk to you for a second?
Yep.
And let's see, I've talked at 3 Rock Against Suicides. I've talked at the state office building. I've talked at the county office building and at the university. And it's amazing the amount of people that come up to you and say, can I talk to you for a second? And that's one of the best parts of that is knowing that I reach somebody.
Yeah.
Because one of the ways that I start my talk is I hope to help somebody or help somebody is what I hope. But I just want to talk more. I really do.
It's because you represent every person. You might not have that degree, but you've got that applied experience, and
Yes.
that applied experience is critical to understanding. And so, what do you find is what do kids want to know the most when you talk with them?
Did I think about it for a long time?
Ah,
And they're basically shocked when I say no. Neither time I did. It was a spur of the moment, both
oh,
times. There was no planning or thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I want to. No, there wasn't. It happened that night. It happened with a span of 10 minutes, and my decision was made. And I know that that doesn't happen to a lot of people, but that's just the way it was to me. And one of the biggest questions I get, and I get it from people who know people have committed suicide, is that people are concerned that they didn't get letters from the person who committed suicide.
mm,
And I try to explain to people is one thing that I didn't think about the the first time was writing a letter. I just wanted the pain to stop.
right.
And that was it. I didn't think about anybody else. Not that I didn't love anybody else, not that I didn't care about anybody else, but I just figured it was better if I just died. Period.
Okay. Okay.
And so that's one thing that people are sort of surprised about. And I actually had a coworker come up to me and say, "Chuck, can I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Sure." She goes, "I'm really upset at my father. I've been mad at him for 11 years." I said, "Why is that?" "Because he committed suicide and he didn't leave a letter. So he didn't love me." And I said, "Whoa, wait a second." And so I explained to her that when I attempted suicide, that the thought of leaving a letter never crossed my mind. She started crying, asked if she could have a hug, and said, "Then you know what? Then I've been mad at my dad, and I shouldn't have been mad, and he did love me." And so it was nice to be able to help somebody in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Just by sharing your story and sharing your
Yes,
truth. So, it's been 4 years since Gloria died.
yes.
Have you found yourself back in that fog? In-
I've actually found myself back in that fog this week, knowing that I was going to talk. I read the book when it first came out, and I haven't read the book since.
oh, Through the Eyes of Men, Grief Diaries
Yes,
Through the Eyes of Men.
yes,
So, for our
and
viewers, uh, Chuck was one of the writers in Grief Diaries Through the Eyes of Men. And Chuck, you were a phenomenal writer. You were very authentic and raw. And it just, your heart came through. And I remember you saying in one of the chapters when you were answering the question, how did you deal with the darkness? Did you ever feel suicidal? And you opened your paragraph on that page by saying, when I started this, I told myself I was going to be truthful.
yes,
And then you went right on and you were truthful. And so, thank you for doing that. First off, it's especially, men are wired not to share much about their pain, their emotions from a very young age. That's just how it is in our culture,
hmm
where women are wired to talk, 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 talk. That's what we do.
hmm
And so with men, you have the same depth of pain and grief as women. You just don't have the same outlet for it.
no,
So that's why we did the book. So you men could share what is grief like through the eyes of a man. And so you said in the book that, first off, you were going to be truthful, and you did talk about attempting suicide, and then you also said that where you cry are places where people can't see you, like your truck.
yes,
And you also said that your home had become like a prison. What do
yes.
you mean by that?
It was a safe place. It was a place where I didn't have to worry about people coming up and talking to me, asking me questions. One of the things that happens after somebody close to you passes away is the looks you get, and you can tell when somebody wants to say something and they don't say something.
Yeah.
Or they come up, and one of the things that got me the most was, she's in a better place. Please do me a favor. If somebody passes away, don't walk up to them and say they're in a better place. They'd be in a better place if they were next to me, not passed away. And so it was just easier to be home, lock myself in when I had the moments of, as we'll go into it and talk about the tidal wave effect, where the emotions hit you all at once, and you get these. It's unbelievable when it first happens, because you get hit with the tidal wave of
Yeah.
emotion immediately. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no warning. It just hits you, and then it hits you again and hits you again, and eventually they don't hit you as much, and they get not as big, but they still hit you. And it's easier being a guy to cry alone. And when I returned to work, one of the best things that happened was, because I work at the university, I had keys. If I felt the tidal wave coming, I could unlock a door and go into a room. And I explained that to people at the university, and actually what they're thinking of doing now is setting up what I call a safe room. So when they go back to work, they have a room where if the door is closed, nobody's to enter. You just close the door. You can be in there by yourself, contain your emotions again, and then go back out and go to work. Because one of the things going back to work, the problem is that everybody wants to come up and say you're sorry. Well, I went back to work to be able to do something, to try to be able to think of not Gloria passing away, but everybody. And I respect them and appreciate it and understand, but it just keeps coming and coming and coming with people coming up to you, and it just builds. I think I went back to work too soon. I only took 2 weeks off, and I should have taken off a little longer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because I locked myself in the house, I figured I needed to get out of the house.
And so you said that you found yourself in the fog. And I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to see what questions we might have from viewers. And so, viewer, if you have a question for Chuck, now's the time to ask it. You can type it right into the comment thread there, and I'll read it to Chuck, and he can answer it. But Chuck, you said that you found yourself in the fog this week as you were thinking about coming on, sharing your story. How did you work through it?
You get used to it. You don't get over it. It just becomes part of your life.
Yeah.
And you know when you're in it now, because after you've been in it for so long that you sort of block it out. You're there, and it's just and it's a fog. It just you're not thinking of anything specific. You walk into it's like, and I'm not trying to be funny. It's when you walk into a room when you wonder, wow, why did I walk in here?
Yeah.
Because and you go to the store and you're walking around and you went, oh, wait a second, and you find yourself going back, retracing your steps because you forgot something.
Yeah.
Because I'm a guy, I don't write a note, a list, so I make a lot of trips around. But the fog it's a rough thing when
it is.
You're in grief. It really is.
It really, and on some level, it kind of insulates you, and on the other level, it robs your world of Technicolor. And you wander, and then you think, what was I doing in here? I mean, it's a fog. So let me see if we've got questions from viewers here. We've got different people saying hello. Bill Downs, hello. Mary Lee, Linda May. And so if anyone has any questions, I don't see any questions just yet, but if anyone has any questions, please put it in there, and Chuck will answer for you. So, how have you changed? I know it's been only 4 years, but how have you changed since you started opening up about your suicide attempt? You came this close to ending it all.
You become part of a group when your partner passes away, because you become closer to other people who have lost their partners. because you have the same feeling for them. And
Hmm.
there's a different hug that you give people that you know has lost somebody. Um, it's that
That is
little
truth.
extra
That
tug,
is truth.
and you feel more compassion for somebody who's lost somebody. Not that you didn't before, but because you've been through it, and you try to help people that have been through it. Because when it first happened, and I know it's happened for hundreds of years, it's people have lost their partners, but you think you're alone. And
Yeah.
that was one of the hardest things for me to deal with, was realizing that I wasn't alone, but everything that I was going through had never happened to me before. And right after Gloria passed away, I actually saw a grief counselor because I thought I was losing my mind. And I went and talked to the grief counselor, and the grief counselor said, Chuck, you don't have to come back to me. Everything that you're experiencing is what you're supposed to experience, because I didn't know what was going on, which made me feel better. It did.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I try to do now is, because I've talked about grief on campus, I find myself trying to help people because of, so they wouldn't get that feeling alone feeling, because
Right.
that feeling is terrible. It
So,
really is.
what do you want people to know about suicide?
That there's always another day.
Mm.
There's always another day.
How did
Things
they
can,
hang on, though? How did they hang on? You know, you, as you sat there with the gun in your hand, and then it came to you that you did not want to leave this mess for your loved ones.
yes,
And that was enough to stop you.
it was because one thing I've learned, and you hear this comment all the time, is that if you commit suicide, what you're doing is you're passing the pain along. You forget about what the repercussions are for everybody who's left behind. And if I could get more people to understand that, wait a second, please think about the other people who love you. And one of the things that my brother did, and we go back to this list that we've talked about before, I call it a Bo's list. It was my brother found out that his stepdaughter was thinking about suicide, and I love my brother, and he's one of the, we're best friends. But what he did was, the next day he took his stepdaughter. He goes, "Come on, we're going to go to the store." My brother's an artist. He goes, "I got to pick some paper up and some stuff." So he took her with him. He got back to the house and he goes, "Do me a favor, put this piece of construction paper up against that wall." And she goes, "What?" And he goes, "Put the construction paper, tape it up against the wall." So he walked over to the other side and he taped up a construction paper. He goes, "Do me a favor." He goes, "I want you to put a list of everybody who loves you on that piece of paper." She goes, "What do you mean?" "Just put everybody who loves you, your friends who love you, put it on that piece of paper." And he started writing on his paper, and she goes, "What are you doing?" He's going, "I'm writing everybody down that I love." And she goes, "But I don't know them all." He goes, "But you got to understand, just do it." So she finished it, and he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Look," he goes, "see that list right there? If you had committed suicide, that's everybody you would have hurt." And she goes, "Really?" And, "Well, what about the people on your wall?" "Well, those are the people that would have been hurting for me because you committed suicide."
Oh my goodness.
So he says, "Do me a favor." He goes, "You can take that paper down anytime you want." He goes, "But I'm just letting you know, that paper stayed on that wall for a month."
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
one of the greatest, best learning experiences for a younger person to realize, because they don't think about other people. They
No.
really don't, you know? So that's one of my happy parts of my talk. I enjoy telling that story because I'm proud of my brother for teaching me that. And I
Yeah.
try to pass that along.
I remember when you shared it with me, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, that is a creative way to get a point across, because when you're in that moment, you know, and I have to be honest, after we lost our daughter, I would have been okay had I not woken up the next morning. And I felt that way every morning for a very long time.
Yes.
And that's why it's become important for me personally to talk about suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're able to talk about it in a way that we don't fear someone's going to lock us up and throw us in a padded cell,
Yes.
because that's the biggest fear. I remember thinking, as I laid there after losing our daughter, I remember thinking, if I tell somebody that I don't want to wake up tomorrow, that I would have been perfectly okay, they're going to lock me away.
Mm-hmm.
And I have other kids to raise,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that was the fear that went through my mind. But yet when we talk about it, we find that we're not the only one. And there's a lot of comfort in that.
Yes.
Because of people who have experienced that before us can find joy and restore happiness to the world, then maybe we can too. And so that idea that, oh, we can't talk about it because we might plant seeds in someone's mind, if they have that already thinking in their mind, we didn't plant it there.
Mm-hmm.
We just gave them permission to say, I'm not the only one. So maybe there's hope. And that's important. So let me see. We've got a question here from Mary Lee Claflin. Hi, Mary Lee. Okay. So Mary Lee says, I have a friend who's going through anticipatory grief. And what that means is her husband is dying of pancreatic cancer. And she says she thinks of ways that she can do to be with him when he dies. She's on medication and think of getting counseling. She's been married and has never lived alone. And she doesn't think she can make it on her own without her husband. And so she's offered her friend the idea of calling hospice, because hospice can help both the patient and the patient's family. Mm-hmm. And so Mary Lee wonders if you have any thoughts on that. So we've got a wife whose husband is dying of cancer. I know that your wife, Gloria, didn't die of cancer, but we've got this patient here, or this spouse here, who's never lived without her husband. What can you offer her?
Hope. There really is hope. I mean, it's been a tough time since I lost Gloria. It really has. I don't have a problem admitting that. And I still, feel bad, and I have my moments.
Yep.
But it's not something that I know Gloria would want me to do. And it's one of the things that keeps me going, because I know Gloria would want me to be happy, and she wouldn't want me to act the way I acted the first year after she passed away. But I have to keep telling myself that, and I talk to her every day.
Yeah,
I do.
And I believe that she hears you every day.
I'll give you a quick one, and I don't mean to go away from helping you, but please, there's hope, and please believe that.
Yeah.
There's one of the things that was taught to me was finding dimes, single dimes, something that I never heard of until Gloria passed away. And I was told this by my sister: if you find a single dime, it's a hug from heaven. Okay? Now, right now, Gloria has been passed away for 45 months. In those 45 months, I have found 51 single dimes.
Really?
Yes. And I put them in her coffee cup. And you have to understand, in my lifetime, I don't think I've ever found 20 single dimes. But since she's passed away, I found 51 dimes, single dimes, in that time span. And I explained that to my boss. And my boss goes, huh, all right, I never heard that. A couple days later, I'm at work and I hear, Chuck. I said, what? She goes, Chuck. And I said, what? She goes, please come here. And I walk over, and she had found a single dime. And she held it up, and she goes, it's a hug from somebody. Thank you very much.
Oh, my goodness. I love that. I'm going to add to that in terms of hope, is that, when we are grieving the loss of someone we love, it feels like in the beginning that we will never feel anything besides pain.
Yes.
It just feels like, as I said, the Technicolor's been robbed from our world.
Yes.
And what we now know that we didn't know then is that the heart can hold joy at the same time as sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are watching someone you love die, as in the case, Mary Lee, of your friend who's watching her husband die of pancreatic cancer, um, it's hard to envision life beyond that.
Yes.
Because right now, all your friend knows is pain.
Yes.
And so the words that I like to offer people is that hang on. One day it won't always feel this raw.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I'm living proof.
We will miss our loved one for the rest of our life with every breath. However, while not every day is beautiful, there's beauty within every day. And so one day you'll start to see bits and pieces of beauty going on around you, and eventually more and more will come into your world, and so you'll always miss your loved one, always.
Yeah, I'm always, and I'm set with that, and I know that I will always miss Gloria.
But it won't always feel this raw.
There's days that I look up and see a bright blue sky and I smile.
Yep. And you become grateful for those days.
Very grateful.
I'm 9 years out from losing our daughter, and my world is filled with beauty. It's filled with blessings. I have a good life. But had you told me I would have had a good life 9 years ago, I would have said you're crazy.
Exactly.
And it takes time. And I know, people say it takes time, and I hated that. Yes. I swear, if the next person that said that to me, I was going to slug them. It was like, what does that mean? And so we all find our own way, but I can just say, Mary Lee, to your friend, that it won't always feel this raw. And bless her heart, because Mary Lee, I know your heart, and you have a fantastic heart, and being able to hold that sacred space there for her as she's grieving the loss of her husband, just like you lost your husband. You know what it's like. So being able to hold that sacred space for your friend, and know that no words will soothe the pain, but a hug and listening are priceless. And that support is what's going to get her through. So I will keep your friend, close to my heart. And I know that it's hard to watch someone you love die, but just know that love lives forever. And truly, and with you, Chuck, the way that you frame Gloria, the love that you have for her has never died. I mean, it's still there. And because love continues on, it transcends all differences. Sometimes, though, grief is it's love with nowhere to go, and we have to figure out how to process that. So that's the tough part. But it does. One day, you learn that the heart can hold joy at the same time as sorrow.
And so, can I tell one more quick story?
Yeah.
The day that Gloria passed away, Alicia and Heather said, why don't you come over to our house for a while to get out of the house? I said, you know what, that's a good idea. And so I came over, I went to their house for a while, and they said, you want to spend the night? And I said, no, I got to get back to the house because of the dog and the cat and the bird. My wife loved the zoo. So we got, Heather took me back with her dad, and we started to pull in the driveway, and I saw our truck there. And everything that I'd been through that day, knowing that my wife had passed away, my heart actually skipped a beat, and I thought for 1 second, Gloria's home. So I will never, ever forget that one special feeling of that's how I've always felt about her. And it's something that I will always remember. And I told them, I can't believe it. Because I sat right up in the truck and thinking, oh man, Gloria's home. And then the reality set back in. But
yeah. Thank you. Carrie Worthington has she's another Grief Diaries writer as well. She said, when I had suicidal ideation, I went to my therapist knowing he would put me in the hospital. It was 4 days I needed. I tell of my ideation and my experience in the hospital. It's something we have to talk about so people will not be afraid to ask for help. Thank you, Carrie. That is so, so, so true. And, that's why we're doing the show tonight, is to talk about it. And it's really valuable when we have people who've been there, who came this close, share their feelings and experience.
And after my first attempt, I was actually put away for 30 days. And it was the best 30 days that I could have had, because When I came out, I got help that I needed, which I didn't realize I needed. And I tell anybody, please, if you need to talk to somebody, please talk to somebody, because it's so important.
So I'm going to ask both you, Chuck, and you, Carrie, why do you think people are so reluctant to get that kind of help? You know, to go into a facility, we go into facilities for other things. Why not suicidal thoughts and depression? Why do you think there's such stigma against going into a mental health facility?
Because it's a stigma.
Mm.
It's a stigma about you're having mental health problems, because in Binghamton, they have what they call the fifth floor, and that's where everybody went. And we would joke about it when I was younger, oh, you're going to end up on the fifth floor. It's a joke, not, and that was one thing that night that I attempted suicide, my friend said, Chuck, I'm not leaving you alone until you promise to get help. And I got help, and they automatically, in the state of New York, they can put you for 72 hours.
Okay.
And then at the end of 72 hours, you have to get interviewed again, which I got interviewed. And they said, you know what, you're not going anyplace. So I was there for 30 days, and I came out feeling completely different. I wasn't aware that I had the low self-esteem that I had because of everything that I had been through.
Okay.
So I needed that time. And I needed to be with other people that were going through the same thing, because you don't think, as we discussed earlier, you don't think that anybody's going through what you're going through.
Yeah.
But then when you're with people that are going through the same thing you're going, wait a second, I'm not alone.
I'm not alone.
Yep.
There's so much comfort in that. So much. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Carrie, you as well. Thank you for, sharing it. I think if more people talked about how helpful inpatient treatment is, more people would access it.
Yes.
And it's there to be accessed.
Yes.
And it does save lives. And so thank you for being brave enough to share that. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
That was part of your story. So thank you.
And one last thing, because this phone is starting to go, is I want people to understand that if you go to get psychiatric help from somebody, you go to see a psychiatrist, if you don't get along with that psychiatrist, please don't think that you can't go see another one.
Right.
Because people are under the impression that all psychiatrists are the same. They're not. They're different, just like everybody.
Yep.
Because it actually took me 3 psychiatrists. I had to find one in order to be able to get out. It took me the 3rd one before I clicked with that person. And that's what I try to tell people nowadays, is if you go to somebody and you don't get along with them, that's fine, because you're not going to get along with everybody. Go see another one. Don't give up.
Wise words. Because, just as there are good doctors, bad doctors, there's good chefs, bad chefs, there's good lawyers, bad lawyers. Same with psychiatrists. They are people.
Yes,
and so if one doesn't fit, and just like support groups and such, if one doesn't fit, go try another.
There you go.
So, So thank you, Chuck, for joining us tonight. We need to continue this conversation.
I would love to.
Yeah. And thank you to the viewers for hanging in there with us as we figured out how to work past our technical problems tonight. Got a little bit of excitement there. But Chuck, thank you so much. You are a blessing to many. And I look forward to having you on again and talking more about this.
Lady, I will talk about it anytime, and thanks for having me, because I appreciate it. And every time I talk to you, you're one of the few people that always uplift me. When I finish talking to you, I always walk away feeling better, and I appreciate that.
That's how I feel about you. You're so authentic, and I love that. You are a gem, and I really mean that. So
right back at you.
All right. Love you tons.
Love you.
And thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.